From Bernie taking on Amazon, as I reported the other day, from Bernie taking on the Walmarts, the Walton family. As you know, Amazon just got I can't think of a greater sweetheart deal ever, really. Amazon's getting literally $3 billion to grace New York City, which definitely doesn't need Amazon, to grace the Virginia, which I don't know why Virginia needs Amazon either. $3 billion of taxpayer money going to Amazon. So, as I always say to you, and I say to my father too, who likes Donald Trump and watches Fox News, do you think this money just comes out of people's assholes? Thank you, Ben. $1.99. I wish I could afford more. I'm broke as fuck. Hey, Ben, $1.99 means a lot, especially that you're broke. That's what people need to understand. Even if you could only contribute like $3, $5, $10, all of that adds up. So there's no shame no matter what amount you leave. I've literally had people mail me like a $10 bill with a really nice letter. And sometimes that is, obviously money is money, so the more the better. But sometimes you get a letter from people talking about how you're reporting and what we do here affects them, even with a $10 bill. And the actual letter is just as important as the cash. So I can't thank you enough. Thank you, Carolina. $10 in the super chat. Thanks for all you do, Jordan. Thank you, Carolina, for appreciating that. By the way, I have an interview that we're going to play part of it after this segment. I interviewed Harold Frazier, who's the chairman of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. Guess what? Even though that judge revoked that permit for Keystone XL pipeline and everybody's doing jumping jacks, do you really think the oil company is going to listen to them? I have exclusive news to report to you tonight that they're still doing the construction anyway. So we're going to play that interview in a little bit. So if you like the original reporting, keep it coming. So Amazon is getting this $3 billion deal. They're getting a helipad built in New York City for Jeff Bezos. You know, New York City can't fix the subway, which is a humanitarian disaster. I could tell you because I write it every week. They can't fix the subway. They can't improve schools. Can't beef up, nutrition programs and homeless shelters. Can't do any of that. But we do have $3 billion for Amazon. We do have the money to build a helipad for Amazon. It's insane. And by the way, I went to watch my nephew the other day, and I was talking to my brother. My brother works in finance, and he thinks this is fantastic. He says, Jordan, this is how you create jobs. When companies like Amazon comes in, you give them a tax incentive, and they create jobs. I said, oh, John, my brother's a great guy. I love him, but, you got to get out of your finance bubble. You got to get out of that finance bubble. Create jobs. Yeah, they're creating some good jobs, but the majority of their jobs are either part-time, seasonal, and those jobs that are being created, he keeps, they're going to help the economy. Are they going to help the people up in Harlem? Are they going to help the people poor as fuck in parts of Brooklyn? Are they going to help some of the people poor as fuck upstate New York who have contaminated water up there too? Please. If New York has $3 billion to throw at Amazon, the subway could be fixed like that. So guess what? As I always tell you, and I hope you tell your friends this, tell your Republican uncle at Thanksgiving, tell your neoliberal auntie at Thanksgiving, who do you think's paying for these tax cuts? We already live in a socialist country. You know, everybody at Thanksgiving, the Republicans, oh, socialism. Make sure they understand we already live in a socialist country. And here's an example. You know who's paying in New York for Amazon to get a $3 billion tax subsidy? Well, right now it looks like people in New York City. This is the first domino. MTA preparing another fare hike starting next year. Anybody find that convenient that this just came out the day after it was said that the Amazon is going to get a $3 billion tax subsidy? New Yorkers may have to start digging deep into their pockets to ride the subway starting this March, when the MTA will likely raise fares by 4%. Quote, if we don't put in place the toll and fare increases we are projecting, deficits will increase significantly, MTA Chief Financial Officer Robert Foran said. The fare increase would affect subways, buses, Metro North, Long Island Railroad, and bridge and tunnels. One proposal was to raise tolls on bridges and tunnels by 8%. When it comes to MetroCards, the MTA proposed increasing base fare to $3. Right now it's $2.75 to ride the subway, a 4.2% increase. As part of that deal, riders would now get a 10% bonus when buying a $6 MetroCard. The other option is to keep the base fare at $2.75, but to get rid of the 5% bonus strap hangers receive with a $5.50 purchase. Both proposals would bring in an additional $308 million annually. But even with that hike, the cash-strapped agency will still have a $1 billion deficit by 2020. The fare increase has been scheduled since 2009, but at a July meeting, board members wondered whether they could make up the revenue elsewhere instead of laying the burden on the backs of commuters. Oh, of course they wondered. At the meeting Thursday, some board members appeared to oppose the hike. Quote, "I don't like any of the options," said board member Mitchell Pally. Quote, "The paying riders should have to shoulder more of a burden," added board member Larry Schwartz, who suggested the agency deal with fare evaders instead. Oh, shouldn't have to, excuse me. So you might say, well, that's only going to raise $308 million, so Amazon's getting a $3 billion subsidy. So that's not all the money that's paying for it. Well, this is how socialism for the rich works. They get us to pay for it. They get us to pay for it by raising hikes and price hikes on the subways and the buses. Then all of a sudden things get more expensive where you live in upstate New York. The water bill gets more expensive. The electric bill gets more expensive. City local taxes go up. Property taxes go up. Edward Klein says, late stage capitalism. Couldn't have said it better myself. How in the world does New York State, and by the way, this is happening everywhere, it's not just New York State. How in the world is it that New York State has $3 billion in extra money lying around to give to Amazon, but you're going to raise the wages? I keep saying wages. You're going to raise the prices for the subway, which, by the way, if you live in New York City, you have to take the subway. Unless your job is like next to you, you have to take the subway. A monthly subway to get a monthly unlimited is almost $200. That's a lot of money for people who are not making a lot of money with kids, and they want to raise it more. So, quote, they are also taxing us to expand the freeways, and they are adding tolls. Mr. Bridges says, yep. And by the way, the bridge tolls in New York are out of control as it is. I think one bridge toll when I was driving into New York City once in my parents' car was like $13. And they want to raise it. So this is about priorities. And let me tell you what the priority is, because the government exists to make the rich richer and give crumbs to the proletariat. That's what the government exists for. So you think if New York State is saying this, right? Here's two options. If you have $3 billion, let's bring in Amazon. We'll give them $3 billion and a helipad, and they're going to create 25,000 jobs. And those people that come into Amazon's new headquarters are going to stimulate business in the surrounding areas, because there will be more people to go to lunch and buy sandwiches. There will be more people to go out to eat, to go to bars, to move into a luxury apartment complexes nearby. That's the thought. So that's one way of doing it. And by the way, it doesn't always work out that way. And the other way of doing it is, hey, you know what? If we have $3 billion, let's put the money into education, retrofitting schools, doing badly needed construction in schools. A lot of these schools in New York City have poor air conditioning, poor heating. A lot of these schools have textbooks from like decades ago that barely are legible anymore. We could be spending that money on better teachers. We could be spending that money on better after-school programs. We could be spending that money on educational resources. And when you better educate students, guess what happens? More students are able to go to college or get their grades up to get financial assistance. And when you're able to do that, guess what? You have a more educated workforce. And when you have a more educated workforce, not only do you have a better country, but you have a better economy. Oh, am I going to disappear if I use the proletariat? Hey, monkey liberty. If I disappear, make sure you tell the bourgeois. Make sure you tell the proletariat. Make sure you tell the proletariat that I disappeared. Sal Ducci says, I got a question. Are all the cities who lost their bid for Amazon going to turn around and help the people with the money they were going to give to Amazon? They can't say they don't have the money. That is a really, really good point, Sal Ducci. They can't say they don't have the money. But no, they're not going to spend it on people. Ruth said the jobs being created are shit jobs, part-time, low-paid work. You will not be spending disposable income because there isn't any. That's where I disagree with, because there is. Governments have the money. Governments have the money. The problem is they are spending that money by giving subsidies to oil companies, by giving subsidies to financial companies, by giving subsidies to pharmaceutical companies, by giving subsidies to real estate developers, and on and on and on. The government has the money. The problem is they are basically making sure that powerful interests don't have to pay any revenue. Why do they do that? Because those powerful interests pay for their campaigns. You want to look at Governor Andrew Cuomo's campaign donors? It's like a hall of fame of corrupt special interests. Terrible. I mean, even the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal, look at the headline from the Wall Street Journal. Amazon's golden fleecing. We rarely agree with socialist Congresswoman-elect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but she's right to call billions of dollars in taxpayer subsidies for Amazon extremely concerning. These handouts to one of the richest companies in the history of the world with an essentially zero cost of capital is crony capitalism at its worst. It's not crony capitalism, it's socialism for the rich. Don't call this capitalism. The actual capitalism, what it's supposed to be, in theory, is not this. So it's amazing. And by the way, not only is this Amazon deal not going to create the jobs it says it's going to create, it also pushes more poor people out of living in these communities. So you're going to build this big headquarters in Long Island City, Queens, and it's going to skyrocket the price of living. It's going to be more expensive to live in apartments. They're going to build condos, luxury condos there, and people living there now are not going to be able to stay there. This is what is happening all over this country. It's happening in areas of Detroit. It's happening in Flint. It's happening in Portland. It's happening in San Francisco. It's happening in Seattle. It's happening in Cleveland. It's happening, I mean, name where you're from. You're probably being gentrified, and you're probably being squeezed to get out of there. It's a not so subtle Hunger Games.